If you've been in the hobby for a while, you know that small changes can make a big difference. Sometimes it's not about the stuff you use, but how you use it. In this video, I'm sharing 5 aquarium hacks that made my life way easier. These are not trends or expensive upgrades, just clever little tweaks that made my setups more stable and more enjoyable. I hope they do the same for you. If you want your pets to be friendly with each other, don't make it forbidden. This one is completely my personal opinion, but I stand by it because I've had really good results, especially with cats. They are affectionate, adorable, and sometimes they can be really mischievous. So, the moment they sense something is off limits, they have to mess with it. So instead of stressing about keeping my aquariums hidden away or constantly yelling no, I've always made sure to have at least one small tank that my cat can easily get to. I started when she was a kitten, and now she could not care less. It's part of her world, and it doesn't feel like some mysterious off-limit zone. The fish move, the water bubbles, she glances, and then walks off. It's just not exciting anymore. And I can proudly say that I've never lost any fish because of her. Not once. So if you have pets, especially curious ones, try flipping the script. Give them a safe way to coexist. Supervise in the beginning, of course, but don't turn the tank into a forbidden temple. That only makes it more tempting. And once that curiosity wears off, you might be surprised how peaceful your living room becomes. No stress, no sneaky paws, just a cat chilling near an aquarium, completely unbothered. A good water change system can make or break this hobby, especially when you've got more than one tank running. Water changes are just part of keeping an aquarium, and depending on the type of setup you have, you might need to do them more often than you like. Personally, I do them once a week. I've got 3 30-gallon tanks, one 50-gallon, a small 5-gallon shallow, and a little anubias growing station out in the garage. So yeah, it adds up fast. What saves me is the system I've set up. I use RO water for everything, and I keep the RO unit under my kitchen sink. From there, I run tubing up through the attic and over to the wall where all the tanks are. The RO system has enough pressure on its own, so I don't need a pump to move the water. The line comes out of the wall and fills a reservoir tank with a float valve that stops the RO once it's full. Inside the tank, I've got a submersible pump, so when it's time for a water change, I drop another submersible pump into the aquarium and drain half the water. Then I switch the hose over to the reservoir and refill. It's not a perfect setup, and I'm still working on making it better, but it lets me change water in all my tanks in under an hour, and that's huge. If you've got more than one tank, don't wait. Build yourself a solid system. You'll change everything. If you're enjoying the video, remember to like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow, and it helps me to keep making content about this beautiful hobby. If you want to get a quick idea of where a fish swims and how it feeds, without digging through pages of care guides, just look at their mouth. And this actually came from one of you guys' comments. I've been keeping fish for many years, and I can't believe I never thought about it. It sounds simple, but it works. If the mouth is angled upward, the fish probably feeds at the surface. A forward-facing mouth usually means it's a mid-level swimmer that eats in open water. And if the mouth is pointing downward, you are most likely looking at a bottom feeder, something that grazes along the substrate. This technique is especially useful when you're browsing through listings online. A lot of those pages have long descriptions you don't always want to read, especially if you're just trying to decide what fits your tank. But if the picture is clear enough to see their mouth, you can usually figure out a lot right away. You can make a quick judgment about the fish's behavior, where it's going to spend most of its time, and even how it will interact with your existing setup. That said, there are some exceptions. Some fish are built a certain way, but don't behave exactly as you expect. So don't treat it as a hard rule, but as a strong clue. Combine it with body shape and fin layout. and you'll get a pretty solid idea without needing to memorize every species. It makes stocking your tank way easier, even more so when you want peaceful, well-balanced activity at every level. By the way, if you're looking for healthy aquarium plants to go with your next stocking plan, I've got a bunch available over at my store. Everything is grown with care, and I ship it all myself. So if you're curious, check it out after the video. Algae doesn't show up because your tank is doomed. It shows up because your tank is alive. And while yes, too much algae can be frustrating, the type and amount of algae growing in your tank is one of the best indicators of what's going on beneath the surface. Diatoms, for example, are common in new setups. They thrive when there's silicate and low light. Green spot algae can show up if your phosphate levels are low, and green hair algae often points to excess nutrients or fluctuating CO2. Instead of scrubbing everything and hoping for the best, take a second to observe what kind of algae is growing. Look at where it's forming, on the glass, on slow growing plants, near the light source. These little details tell a bigger story. Algae shows you what your tank is lacking or getting too much of, and if you learn to read it, you'll make much better decisions with your lighting, CO2, and fertilizers. No tank is completely algae-free, and that's okay. In fact, many healthy aquariums have a little bit here and there. A healthy tank isn't one that looks flawless. It's one where plants grow steadily, the fish are active and eating, and your maintenance isn't a nightmare. So the next time you see algae forming, don't panic. Take it as a sign your tank is talking to you, and adjust from there. Lighting makes a massive difference in any aquarium, but finding the right duration for your specific setup takes a little trial and error. A lot of people ask what the perfect number of hours is, and the truth is, there isn't one answer. It depends on your tank size, your plant load, your light intensity, and how much CO2 or nutrients you're adding. Most people fall somewhere between 6 to 8 hours a day. But here's the important part. You don't have to commit to one number and never touch it again. You can and should adjust your lighting schedule depending on how your tank responds. If algae starts to get out of control or your plants look like they are struggling, try shaving off 30 minutes. Give it a week and observe. If everything still looks healthy, but you want a bit more growth, try adding 30 minutes instead. Small tweaks like that can make a huge difference without having to change your light fixture or redo your whole setup. You can also use a timer to align the light with your schedule, so your tank is lit during the hours you are most likely to enjoy it. Lighting doesn't have to be a mystery, just treat it like a variable you can control, based on the specific needs of your plants and setup. Over time, you'll find your own sweet spot, one that gives you healthy growth, minimal algae, and a tank you enjoy every time the lights turn on. These hacks might seem simple, but when you add them all up, they can really change your experience in the hobby. Less stress, more stability, and tanks that feel like they run themselves. Try out the ones that work for you, and don't be afraid to adapt them to your own style. That's what this hobby is all about.